Good morning. I was having a conversation the other day around a dinner table, and it was suggested that human beings are mortally terrified of two things. The first one is death, and the second one is public speaking. I just thought I would begin with that as a roundabout way of telling you how thoroughly terrified I actually am standing here. I spent a brief time here in this wonderful city, and yesterday I took a little walk to refresh my memory of these streets and the times that I was here. I went to the cathedral. In front of the cathedral, on the front and by the door, is something called an image screen. Within that screen are statues of human beings, 400-500 years old, made in stone. I went inside the cathedral. I asked the curators who these men and women were. And they said, "We have no idea who they were." And they stand there in their alcoves, denuded now by time and apparently bonfires, their faces almost indecipherable, their bodies, their clothes almost indecipherable. They have just become abstract shapes in many cases, standing there above the door around the front of this beautiful cathedral. We can be sure of two things, I think. The first of all is that, whether we like it or not, we all die. All of us. It is something that the Buddhists call our beautiful impermanence. The second thing is that we all bequeath, each one of us, something of ourselves to the generations that come beyond us. My question today is, what are we leaving our children? What type of planet, what type of society are we leaving for them? What type of world are they going to inhabit? First of all, we're leaving them a world which I think most people would agree is in grave peril. We're leaving them seas which are denuded and polluted. We're leaving them with a crisis of extinctions, mass extinctions. 18,500 species now rest on the United Nations Red List for those species that are in imminent danger of extinction. They face the sixth greatest mass extinction in the history of this planet. We're leaving them that. We're leaving them also quite a toxic mixture, I think, of a combination of governments, corporations, and the media, who uphold the illusion of ownership. Ownership is not a reality. It is merely a belief system. We are the first generation to consciously, knowingly leave behind for our children a planet in a worse state than the one that we inherited. Over the last 7 or 8 years, I've been very fortunate. I've traveled the world. I've been to many, many countries. And I began to realize while I was there that in nearly all of them, I was having the same conversation. It wasn't a conversation that I was having with politicians or leaders of world religions or leaders of the business community. I was having this conversation with people like you and I. And I was having this conversation in Russia, in Bolivia, in Egypt, in the United States, in India, in Nepal, in Vietnam, in Japan, in Latvia, Norway, Ireland, wherever I went. I was having the same conversation. in cafes and bars, on benches. And the conversation was about the future that we are leaving for our children. And what struck me about this conversation was that whilst I was having it with people like you and I, that this conversation in itself seemed completely alienated from the political discourse that I was being presented with by the media. The conversation apparently taking place between governments and world leaders of our planet. The conversation taking place on the ground appears to be completely different from that happening within the corridors of government. And this conversation was about the future that we are leaving our children. As I've said, we are the first generation who are consciously, knowingly leaving our children a planet in a more perilous state than the one that we found. Why are we doing this? What if we were to now understand that we are in fact coming to the end of one age? It has been trade that has taken us to where we are. Trade and economics have led us to the planet that we now inhabit, the human society that we now inhabit. But the prevalence and our reliance on trade is taking us into now very perilous and very dangerous waters. What if we were becoming to the end of the age of economics, and now at last starting, tentatively exploring the age of the environment? What would happen? How would it be if we were to leave our children? I remember having this conversation in a bar in Egypt, in a cafe in Egypt. I was talking to a young man and a young woman, and they were saying that we all live in countries, something that Joanna Macy has described as militarized, industrialized, competing complexes. These young men and women in Egypt were saying, countries have passed their sell-by date. They looked at me and they said, I am not Egyptian. I am a human being. I am from planet Earth. And from that point on, whenever I met people, and they would always say to me, where are you from? They weren't asking me where I was from. They were asking me what tribe I was from. And after about 3 months, I learned, having had that conversation, to say, I am from planet Earth. What about if we were to leave our children a planet where there were no more militarized industrial complexes that we know as countries? And that if we were to begin to honor one of the most basic of all human rights, which is the freedom of movement, so that we are free to go wherever we choose to, wherever we would like to on the planet. At the moment, we are not free to do so. Song thrushes, robins, have more freedom than we do. The current system of militarized industrial complexes called countries is simply not fit for purpose anymore. We need to think bigger. We need to reimagine what it might be like to live in a world without them. Competing world religions that do not uphold and honor the dignity of all life on this planet are not fit for purpose anymore. We need religions that understand that human dignity is found in recognizing and upholding the dignity of all life. And that the divine and the sacred are not simply limited to the human expression. Religions that do not uphold the dignity of all life are not fit for purpose anymore. We do not need them. Farmers who poison the earth are not fit for purpose anymore. Fishermen and women who desecrate the oceans and the seas are not fit for purpose anymore. Corporations that put profit before people and planet are not fit for purpose anymore. We need to give our children a world where we have handed over the care of the environment to the farming community, where farmers bless the earth on our behalf, where we have handed over the seas into the care of fishermen and women. We need to start to take responsibility for the legacy that we are leaving. As you saw at the beginning of today, this conversation is taking place all over the planet now. We need now to have our voices heard. We need now to bring about consciously a new world where there is justice for all life, where we understand and know intrinsically that we are just one life carrying all life, and we live in a system where all life carries one life. Thank you.